desert in the great American Southwest. I'm Art Bell.
Slamming into your radio like a supercharged nanoparticle of unobtainium. My name is George Knapp.
I'm Richard Serrett.
This is Connie Willis.
I'm George Norrie. Welcome to Coast AM.
It's great to be here.
Welcome to Coast PM, the number one unofficial Coast AM podcast. We are two brothers who analyze the world's largest overnight paranormal radio show known as Coast AM. My name is Paul, and I'm the one that listens to this inexplicable radio show here with my brother.
Hey, it's Chris and Paul. I'm sure I'm excited for another exciting episode of Coast to Coast PM today.
I am as well, Chris. Today we're going to be listening to a August 22nd, 2004 Art Bell episode where he holds open lines and tries to get some time travelers to call in.
Perfect. That's what we're looking for, baby. We need some time travelers to tell us what's going on in the future because everything is so uncertain these days.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
It's jugglers throwing balls up in the air. Are we going to hit the ground? Are we going to get caught? Are we going to be juggled again?
A difficult part about being alive is the uncertainty that comes with the future, Chris. But today we are going to shed a little light on that dark future that we're all looking at.
The only thing that's certain is death and taxes, Paul.
Very true. This is actually our second Art Bell Time Traveler Open Lines as well, Chris. Astute Patreon listeners will recall that we did a previous episode on this, but we had to do one for the public feed. The people have been clamoring for it.
That's right. They're hollering from the streets. We need Art Bell Time Traveler Open Lines.
They are indeed. But before we get to that, Chris, we have to check in with our good friend Tim Banal at the Coast to Coast AM blog.
Tim time.
Today's article: funeral chain slammed for sending Valentine's Day cards to nursing home.
Don't love that. That is that is cringe.
Is that bad taste?
That is ultimate cringe. But you know what? Here's the funny thing. One, I bet some of those elderly folks, that was probably the only Valentine's card they got. Two, they probably put it up on like their mantle or their dresser or something. Three, they probably will use that in their will. They're like, well, the nice people at the Richardsons and Sons funeral home sent me a card and I thought it was very nice. So that's who's burying me now.
And that's the thing, man, is that, we'll get into it, but was this just effective marketing? They know their target audience.
I think this may just be, late stage American capitalism.
I think it's very possible, but let's find out. A chain of funeral homes in England is under fire for what some contend was a rather macabre marketing scheme in the form of Valentine's Day cards that the company sent to a nursing home.
So now you've completely changed my whole mind about this because it's British.
Yes. Is that a big difference for you?
Doing this.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like an awful, terrible thing.
Okay. It's immediately worse.
It's immediately worse because these are the Brits.
That's fair. The misguided at best gesture reportedly came to light on Wednesday when the White Gates Care Center in the community of Lalame received the lavish-looking holiday missives in the mail.
I just assumed Valentine's Day was a made-up American holiday to sell candy and cards. So you're telling me the rest of the world is celebrating this kind of semi-BS holiday?
I can confirm that at least in the UK, they are celebrating.
Yeah. They're essentially the American sphere. Like, we used to be the Anglosphere, right? About 100 years ago, you would have been like, yeah, we're just kind of essentially a minor partner to the Brits. But they are really the minor partner to us now. I mean, they're our foothold into Europe.
Yeah.
It's true. They got so mad about being called European. They dropped out of the EU.
I hear that's mostly why they did that.
And they were like, we're not European, we promise. And we're like, well, you're certainly not American. Then you're not joining us.
We need to colonize them. It's our turn to get some payback here.
Those wobbly knees and those awful teeth, that's not coming into our gene pool.
I do kind of want the monarchy, though. I just feel like it would be fun to have a monarch that has no power.
You want to go to a figurehead only monarchical system in America? Isn't that what the president is anyways at this point?
We're getting close to it. We're getting
I was
close
gonna
to it.
say, dude, no matter what, they're just gonna be doo-dooing their pants. Like they're not making any of the actual decisions. It's a
Well-
pure ceremonial position at this point. I mean, the few speeches we get from Biden these days, just like mumble mumble, ice cream cookies is yum yum, and that's it. That's what the president does now. Like he just sits and eats ice cream and poops his pants.
I think this is a record-breaking 4 minutes before we got to poop in the pants, Chris. Congratulations.
Poop pants Biden. Well,
Moving-
to be fair, Trump has poop pants too. They really should be the ones receiving these Valentine's Day cards from the funeral home. Like both of our presidents should have gotten these cards as well.
They are the correct age. But moving on, Chris, to the article. However, many of the residents were understandably put off when they opened the cards and read that they were sent with love, the local branch of the funeral chain T.H. Sanders and Sons. That's a good name for a funeral chain.
T.H. Sanders, are you kidding me? I want like a bucket of chicken to go with it.
I know, right? I feel like the first two, like my first two names don't have good enough letters for me to use them like that. But T.H. strong.
You're
Very strong.
PR, and that's no good. You can't
Don't
be...
give my information out, Chris.
Oh, I just said PR.
Don't do that.
Okay, fine. Well, anyways, that's not good. Well, CA isn't that great either.
Whatever. As one might imagine, relatives of the nursing home residents were aghast to hear of the incidents, with one man declaring it's appalling for a funeral director to be trying to attract new customers by targeting the vulnerable elderly people.
Do you call yourselves a customer when you're at the funeral home?
I guess so. They are customers.
It's at the end of the day, it's a capitalist enterprise, right? Like you are buying services and goods from these people. It just happens to be a casket and you're dead and you're not really enjoying any of it, but it's more for the people in your life and not really you. But I guess at the end of the day, you are the customer.
Yeah, you're the clientele for sure.
Yeah.
Do people put in their wills? I guess they do where they're getting buried, because I know a lot of people buy the plot of land before they
buy
die.
the plot for, especially like husbands and wives and stuff. And I mean, especially in the South, there's whole family plots.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're an important enough person, there's like special cemeteries for you to be buried in, know, and I'm sure a lot of that is done beforehand.
Yeah, most likely. I wish that I was that important. Or what would be fun is to have land and have a family plot. That would also be cool, where it's like, a little private family cemetery. I'll start working on that.
Just put my body in the dumpster, dude.
I want to be one of those people that go into the tree pods and then the tree grows out of you and then the family can visit the tree.
Send me to the landfill, dude. I don't even care.
Well, I'll make sure to tell your wife to dump you in a landfill if you die before me, indicating that he now plans to take his mom out of the nursing home. The man mused that luckily we managed to hide it away before mom could see it, as it would have been devastating.
They couldn't even read the Valentine's Day card. Could you imagine, from a funeral home? That's a little lame. That's a little lame.
Honestly, I hope that when I'm old, I have a better sense of humor than that.
These are grown people at the end of the day. Like, I get like dementia or something like that. But even if they had dementia, they're not going to remember the card anyways.
Yeah, so who really cares?
So it's like, geez, let's settle down a little bit. We all need a little bit thicker skin. Like, as a society, we all need a little bit thicker skin. We're all bruising way too easily these days.
And if anyone should be able to handle it, it should be, the boomer generation who's now going into nursing care facilities. They should have this down. They're fine.
These are the children that got bombed during World War II. And a Valentine's Day card from a funeral home's going to send them over the edge?
That's a great point. They would have been kids during the Blitz, most likely.
Getting freaking bombed.
Oh, Lord.
Settle down.
His outrage was echoed by the charitable foundation Center for Aging Better, which called the cards an utterly appalling stunt.
Keep calm and carry on, you Brits. Jeez.
Meanwhile, the nursing home tried to assure residents and their relatives that the cards were simply a case of an area business trying to brighten their loved ones' holidays. Quote, "We're deeply embedded within the local community," they said, and we value the support and engagement of all our neighbors, including T.H. Sanders.
You know why I don't think World War III would ever happen? Because they would have to have like a restorative justice circle and like pass around bags of popcorn, and like we'd have to talk about our feelings. And it's like nobody has enough wherewithal to get out of the couch and stop watching television, or like running to their computer and be like, my grandmother got a Valentine's Day card from a funeral home and I'm mad. And it's like, that's why World War III would never happen, dude, because like we're so freaking lazy pod people that we'd have to get out of our pod.
Well, Chris, for the most part, apparently, the funeral home chain seemingly recognized how the cards could easily be misconstrued and issued a statement saying that they deeply regret any unintended distress.
What's the over-under that they actually did, though, gain some clients out of this stunt? I guarantee you they did.
They definitely, there's no bad PR, dude. We are now talking about this funeral home over in the UK.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what else is difficult too? I feel like it has to be hard being a funeral home, because how do you appropriately target the audience who's most likely to use your services? Because apparently you can't send them nice cards.
Yeah.
You target them on Instagram, I don't know. Facebook probably.
2-for-1 deals.
Is that it? That's the way to get it going.
2-for-1 deals at the funeral home.
It's just a very important service, and I do feel bad that they can't really target their audiences appropriately, because I'm constantly getting spam mail from everyone that I ever gave my information to. I get cards from my dentist, for God's sake, dude. Like,
yeah, we'll do.
I feel like you should be able to get a card from a funeral home. I don't know. That's just me.
Listen, at the end of the day, I don't really feel bad for funeral homes because it's an inflation-proof business.
Mm-hmm.
People never stop dying.
It's true. That is true.
And, you get a pandemic, you get a nice little bump.
Business was booming, for sure.
Boom.
I am crossing my fingers for the day when I can download my brain into a computer, and then maybe I'll never have to die, Chris. But I still have to do something with my body.
I want to die. I want the blackness and the darkness.
I want to be a computer.
I want to be recombined into the galactic conscious bubble, and then just become one with the rest of the universe. And I think that's going to be a really magical moment, and I don't really want to miss out on that by being in a freaking computer. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, but did you see the Black Mirror episode of...
It sucks, dude.
Saying
Being
something.
a computer would suck. I would never want to be digitized.
I'm going to be first in line. I'm going to be too poor to do it. It's going to be a rich person only thing, I am certain. So Elon Musk is going to get his ass digitized, and I'll never get to join. But if I ever can, I'm going to do it. And I'm also going to sign up to go to Mars, and it's going to be great.
It's kind of like vaping, dude. Vaping is like digitized smoking. And I legitimately, if I smoke a cigarette versus if I vape, or if I smoke weed versus doing a weed vape, it's two completely different things, man. And it's like shorter, and it kind of like doesn't last as long, and it sucks a little worse on all accounts than like having the natural, beautiful leaf and actually combusting it with flame and creating real smoke that goes into my lungs, into my alveolus, and the tar builds up. That's the good stuff.
That is the good stuff, Chris. Mostly tar. Well, let's get to our episode from August 22nd, 2004. Art Bell's Time Traveler Open Lines.
Just got into Iraq.
Yes, we did just get into Iraq. Sorry, it took me a second to pivot.
We just got into the Iraq War.
I'm still realizing from your pro-tar stance that it took me a minute.
I'm telling you, dude, the more and more I think about it, forcing our representatives in Congress to smoke cigars the whole time they're in that building, that's a beautiful policy platform. I just love it so much.
This is the last comment on smoking before we get to the episode, but I think it actually did help because Churchill was in office until he was like 80 years old. And one thing we know about nicotine is that it does stave off dementia. So
That's
maybe
right.
if Joe Biden smoked more cigarettes,
Yeah.
we'd be in a better spot right now. That's all I can
Bingo.
say.
Bingo.
All right, let's continue on though, Chris. Open lines, time traveler episode. Let's get to Art Bell kicking it off.
AM with Art Bell.
It is indeed, and our lines are absolutely open, so if you've got a really compelling story, a very compelling story of some sort, then we want to hear from you. If you're a time traveler, feel free to use any line you're able to get through on. I'm always interested in time travelers. This is Open Lines, Coast to Coast AM and well beyond.
I always love that lightning bolt. Makes
It's
me
very,
happy.
very cool. And I it's just a mastery of the radio is what we're hearing. I
Very
mean,
much
just a wizard of cathode ray tubes.
You know, and that's what's a bummer is that I don't know if anyone else is really on Art Bell's level anymore because I think radio has generally gone downhill, you know, and
It's like saying there's no Walter Cronkite anymore. I mean, there's just, you're comparing apples and oranges.
but it does suck. It does
There's
suck.
no Edward R. Murrow.
There's
where,
not.
Where are the Murrows?
Where is our Walter Cronkite, Chris?
Yeah.
Who does America trust?
No one. We shouldn't have trusted them. We shouldn't have trusted them at the time. It's always been smoke and mirrors, Paul.
I always
It's
think about
always
that.
been smoke and
Everyone
mirrors.
always talks about like the news is lying to you now, and I'm like, they're not any different than they were
there's-
before. It's just before we didn't have other sources.
It's like the lying New York Times. It's like, bro, they were lying in the 1850s.
They were
get
much
those-
worse in the
yeah.
1850s, actually.
Yeah, they made up crap to get America into wars all the time.
They reported
All
on
the time.
giants being found in New Mexico in like
Loved
1910. Like, come
I
on.
loved
Dude.
it. It was it's always been the only place the New York Times belongs is at the bottom of a bird cage to pick up the poop.
Oh, hush. I love their crosswords. You don't have their crossword app? I do.
Oh, I got like 15 of their crossword books.
Yeah, they're
so.
great. They're great. I also like the New York Times cooking app. They have really good short recipes that are really easy to follow.
So we're not. Not one of you coasternauts better buy a subscription to New York Times because Paul said something positive about it. That's
It's
all
a
I
great
gotta say.
deal. You can get a bundle of their word games and the cooking. You know me. I'm a liberal elite deep down. Chris. Those are my people. All right, so we have a variety of people calling in today. We will get to some time travelers, but we're going to start off with some various other open line stories. So we'll start off with the guy who saw a clown, Chris.
Yeah, and I'm calling up. I'm from Hesperia, and I have a story to tell you. Basically, I'll make it fast because I know you have a lot of callers. This clown appeared to me and my wife at night. First, I just saw some bushy orange hair in the doorway.
A clown.
Yeah.
You should be calling George with this, but okay.
Basic clown. I hadn't seen it, so I know that my mind wasn't in that mindset at all. And then it just stood in the doorway, and it had the big shoes and a half moon and star kind of a configuration on its outfit.
Yes.
Then it moved over to where my wife was, and it just stared at her. About this time, my heart started racing. You know how it does, and the adrenaline starts rushing, and you start kind of panicking, you know. And I said, I tapped my wife, and I go, and he said, just tell me. I'm not going to tell you what it is. What's at the foot of the bed?
Yes.
She got up, and her eyes get big as saucers, and she screams, and she dives underneath the covers. And I asked her, what did you see? And he said, there's a clown at the foot of the bed. And so I became kind of angry at this point, and then I got up and I went to squeeze the clown's neck. And right when I went to squeeze the clown's neck, there was nothing there. It disappeared.
Did Art call out George right there at the beginning when he says, I got a clown story to tell? And he's like, well, you should really call George about that.
No, he wasn't calling him a clown. George really likes clown stories.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought, I was like, was Art just like subtly calling George a clown? That's what I thought he
yeah.
meant. That's what I thought he meant.
That's so.
So,
The shade comes much later, like Midnight in
okay.
the Desert. Art Bell in 2015
A
talk
lot
shit
more
on George.
shade. Yeah.
But no, on this one, he was just referencing that you need to tell George the story because George loves creepy
Legitimately.
clowns.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So my first thought after getting over the thought that Art is calling George Norrie a clown, which I thought was hilarious, though. I did think it was very funny, like very subtle dig. Um, the other thing that I thought was that like kind of came up into my mind was we've now have had several stories from Timmy about people dressing up as clowns or other type things and like breaking into people's houses and trying to scare them, or walking around neighborhoods as Bigfoot and trying to get people to see you. Do you think this was legitimately somebody dressed up as a clown, scary, just like trying to scare this couple?
I don't know, but I think it is possible that maybe this is a, the fish was this big type story of there's a guy in an outside window who scared them and it turned into
Right.
like it was at the foot of the bed. I
Yeah.
think that is a possibility because
Yeah.
apparently people do have an affinity for dressing up as clowns and being weird.
Right. I mean,
So
we've heard several. We've heard several public clown stories of people doing weird things.
yes, it is a big one. And I think that is a strong possibility because if this guy is being truthful, it is very odd that it was a shared delusion by this guy and his wife, short of
Right.
some sort of clown spirit. Maybe if someone
Yeah.
died in their clowning outfit inside the house, that would be a
A
possibility.
clown has died here.
Yeah, that could be a reason why, but short of that, I don't know why a creepy clown would show up as a phantom in this person's house.
You think Father Malachi would pick up on that? He's like, I'm thinking this spirit is a clown.
Father Malachi picks up on everything.
This I'm getting a red nose and I'm getting crazy hair.
Malachi Martin thought that someone having a cold was a demon infestation, so I'm sure this would have been a demon story to him.
In the biblical sense, he's not wrong.
That's true. That's why we say God bless you when you sneeze.
Yes.
It's all demons. Well, we kicked off strong with that clown story, Chris. We have another woman who calls in saying that the government has an underground city at Roswell, which is very fun.
I'm going to talk about Roswell, New Mexico. I lived there for almost 14 years.
Really?
Really. There's a lot of strange things, not just in Roswell. There's a place called La Luz Canyon, and there's an underground city there that the government has going on.
How do you know about that?
Well, we were all over there. A friend of mine used to live there, and our kids, being pre-teens, obviously not listening, took off, and they were gone for several hours, a good 15 hours. We were scared to death. Sure. And then these gentlemen brought the kids back, and we call them Men in Black, for lack of a better term.
So you think they stumbled into this underground facility and Men in Black or their equivalent brought your children home?
What the kids had said, there was a great big fan, but it wasn't going. And they crawled between the blades, and they said there was just like great big huge corridors lit up.
It would have been a ventilation system, yeah.
Exactly. And they were just often wandering around in there, and they were caught, and they were detained.
That's totally freaky.
Yes, scared us to death.
I believe that story almost 100%.
It sounds like the kids walked into a missile silo.
Something like that. I mean, something along those lines. And here's the thing. There are giant underground military bunkers all over the desert.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them, like you were saying, were missile silos, but a lot of those missile silos have become, there's nuclear storage facilities all over the place down there too. Like, no telling what those kids stumbled on.
Yeah, and you can buy them now too because some of them have gone into disrepair and aren't being used, and people buy them as personal bunkers now. If you got a couple of mil in the bank,
we talked about it in our preppers episode.
Yep. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty fun for those preteens stumbling into a military base. That would be a story. I wish I did that when I was 12.
Terrifying. I don't think so. I think as soon as I saw the giant ventilation fan that I would have been like, guys, we're not going into that, because it would have brought me straight to Men in Black. If you remember, there's a giant ventilation in that building that they first go into that then takes them all the way underground to the Men in Black headquarters.
Yes.
If I saw something like that, dude, I would be like, that's where I'm going. And I don't think I want to go see down there if I was not invited. Like, those kids probably got picked up pretty quickly. Imagine if they stumbled onto, like, the actual UFOs or the alien bodies that were hidden down there.
Or just generally any sort of real base. They could have gotten shot.
Yeah.
So they have shoot to kill signs out on some of these bases. Like, you're not allowed to go in them. So that's
why. I mean, do you remember when all those kids had the Area 51 Naruto run?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why none of them actually ended up doing it, because they were like, we will get shot and killed.
That was a great moment of internet history, actually. Be breaking into Area 51. That was really quite funny. Yeah.
What a beautiful thing to have happened.
The only cool thing that I ever did when we were kids, like in terms of going somewhere where you shouldn't, is that we had that abandoned amusement park in our town.
Yeah.
I went to go see that once, but that's not that interesting.
I broke into the mall in our town.
Yeah.
And got in trouble for that. We got caught by the police.
Yeah, you're worse than me. You're a bad kid.
I know.
Well, we do have a caller, Chris, who does claim that he did meet a time traveler. So we can get into a little time travel now.
Art, I didn't travel, but the person I met did.
You met a time traveler, you're sure?
Well, you've got to hear me out on this. When I was in Las Vegas, I was at the MGM. Well, anyway, what I was doing was sitting there kind of sulking over my losses. But anyway, this man walked up with a suit on, and he was kind of a movie star looking kind of guy with the dark hair, slick back, Vaseline, almost like the late 30s or 40s. And he sat down, and I thought he looked pretty rough, and he said, "Go to the Flamingo." And I said, what'd you say? And he said, "Go to the Flamingo and play in the table in front of me."
Really?
And I said, well, I don't.
In front of him?
That's what he said.
In other words, he was going to be there as well to point the way.
He said, play the table in front of me.
Yeah, gotcha. All right.
So anyway, I asked him if he wanted to drink, because I used to drink scotch, and he said, "I'd love a scotch." And he took a scotch, and he walked away.
Yes.
And I asked the bartender, I said, "Have you ever saw him before?" And he said, "Well, I didn't really see who you were sitting by. I hadn't seen anybody sit by you tonight." And as I watched him go up the escalator, he sort of disappeared. But there was a lot of people at the MGM. This was the night of the Tyson fight.
Oh, yeah. So I'm sure you beat feet to the Flamingo, right?
Well, I went out and got in the bus, and I'd never ridden in a bus in my life.
Yes, sir.
Public bus. It was 4 a.m.
Yes, sir.
And I went down and just went. I wasn't sure exactly where the Flamingo was at that time, but there it was. And so I walked in the main door, and I walked around the blackjack tables, because that's my favorite game.
Yes.
And I never did see this gentleman standing by a table, and I thought to myself, well, this is crazy. And then I looked over to the left, and there's a cardboard figure of a person full size.
You got to be kidding.
And I didn't know who it was at all. And I asked one of the dealers, I said, "Well, who's that cardboard figure?" Because it looked just like the guy I met at the Flamingo.
Yes.
And he said, "Well, that's Bugsy Siegel." And I said,
God,
"You got
he's
it."
a father of Las Vegas.
That's what he told me. He said, "That's Bugsy Siegel."
That's the founding father of the city over the hill.
Well, anyway, his cardboard statue or figure was right there.
So you played?
I played and won $7,000.
Oh, my God.
That really seems like more of a spirit than a time travel.
Much more of a ghost story than a time travel story. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Can you imagine the founder of Las Vegas coming to you and be like, "Go gamble at this place"? I'm doing what he says.
Oh, 100% I would do what he says.
I'm doing what he says.
Yeah. I mean, that is a way to make some serious money. And it sounds like that $7,000 was a big deal for this guy. I mean, this is 2004 money. That's like what, $1 million?
Seven. I was gonna say, Dave, I'd love to have $7,000 right now. That I gambled and won? Are you kidding me?
That would be
That's
great,
big
man.
money.
I
won a
gambled
couple
for
hundred. Yeah, I was gonna say I won a couple $100 when I went out and played and thought I was a big time Mac.
I immediately lost $100 the only time I've ever been in a casino, and I immediately quit. I was like, this
What
sucks.
are you playing?
Roulette.
That's why you're a dummy.
I lost.
So
No, well,
dumb.
here's what
I
happened.
can't believe that would be ashamed of you.
I bet on red 5 times in a row with $20 each time, and I lost each time.
That's awful. That's so terrible. Roulette, you're so. Oh my god, dude, that's awful. Go play blackjack. Go play blackjack.
I
What are you
don't
doing?
know how to play poker well. I thought I should do the thing that is just pure chance, and I lost.
No.
So
you got to give yourself a little bit of chance.
Didn't go great. Didn't go great for me.
I'm ashamed.
Next up, we have a caller who saw something kind of spooky on the road, Chris.
Okay.
As I'm coming up to the back gate of the Anderson Ranch, it's kind of about a 40-mile-an-hour curve, and I've drove the road most of my life, and I'm doing about, I guess, 75, 80. And in the middle of the road was a bright, luminous, have you ever seen a chem light? Like a marker light?
Oh, yes, sure.
It's about the size of a basketball, glowing in the road.
Just on the road or above the road?
No, hovering kind of in the headlights.
Hovering.
I slammed on the brakes and just looked at this thing and had no clue what to do, and it disappeared. Just no shot off into space, no nothing, just disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there wondering, what to do or, not knowing what to do. And I start to accelerate, and I'm driving below the speed limit around this curve. And as I get around the curve, you can't see it. But as my lights come around, there's a herd of cattle in the road, and they're all black Angus. And had this thing not been there,
you'd have been in a collision.
I'd have been seriously injured or dead. I was just wondering if you ever heard anything like that.
Yes, I have. What do you think? What do you think that was? I mean, if you were forced to guess now, with all these years of reflection, what do you think that was? What do you think it might have been?
A light in the middle of the road. I have no clue.
Isn't that pretty big in the UFO world? The kind of smaller orbs that have different colors, and the different colors have different meanings.
Yeah, usually they are high in the sky, though. I don't hear about them being like hovering over a road very often, though. For some reason, I think this is actually now a relatively common discussion arc in ufology. Yeah. I was mainly thinking of like ghost lights or spook lights of ghosts that keep people from getting into car crashes, which I feel like you do hear a lot, where someone sees something spooky on the road, they slow down and they like would have died if they hadn't. Yeah, we could be dealing with a spirit type thing here, or some kind of energy or something, but I'm pretty sure this is a pretty discussed phenomenon in the UFO community. There are a lot of silver orbs I know that the government has been catching on their spooky satellites. Right. But I also imagine those could turn colors, and if it's an orange color, I would imagine that would be kind of like a danger ahead almost. Anything kind of in the reddish spectrum, I feel like is kind of like a bad color, maybe almost it's kind of a mix between caution and danger, right? Yellow being caution, red being danger. He's seeing kind of an orange color if he didn't slow down. Like the herd of cattle isn't going to hurt him, but if he's traveling at 80 miles per hour on the road and doesn't see him, he gets into a serious accident, right? And so it's just kind of being like, slow down, make sure you know what you're doing. Do you think that aliens would intervene in situations like that, where just a random person could potentially get injured? This is something in which I'm agnostic on. I don't know. I think
it would be like no one else is really around. Let's just kind of be, like what they're just like nice.
Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't, they didn't do really anything. They're like, oh, we got caught. But okay, this guy could like die. Let's not let this guy die. It was, there's nothing special about it or anything like that, but it's just like, and then they're off. And then I don't know if they can like tell if like people aren't going to, he's like, this is a guy that isn't going to ask questions. You know what I mean? I wonder if they're like able to somehow sense that, it's just like, he's like, I love Art because Art is like, he wants to have a conversation about like whatever weird thing this guy believes that it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this guy is just like, just lighten the road.
I mean, and for all we know, if aliens are in some way guiding our development, maybe there was a ripple effect of not letting this guy die and they had to watch over him. Who knows?
It would be how much they are able to anticipate the future. I imagine that we will be able to make anticipations, right? And things could change depending on different outcomes, right? But I would imagine that there would, at the end of the day, be enough variation because we're just dealing with so much different variables that you couldn't have any real predictive ability for some time. But maybe this guy was supposed to call Art and then we're supposed to listen in 2024 and talk about it and message bigger and bigger about the orange orbs that are warning us about Black Angus in the middle of the road.
And now even more lives will be saved because of our podcast, Chris. That is the winning theory, I think, of what actually occurred. I agree. I certainly agree. Well, getting into UFOs, we got a couple of UFO callers coming up. So we have one caller that has a pretty specific UFO theory she wants to get into.
I'm calling from Hawaii.
Oh, great.
And I just wanted to let you know that I have a very strange theory, I think, about all of the UFOs and things that are happening out there. I believe that we're being monitored. And I have an idea that more of us have been abducted than people think. And I think it's probably ancestral.
Well, a straight-on question. Do you believe that you have been abducted?
Oh, most definitely.
I thought so.
Yeah, I believe 3 generations of my family has.
Really?
Yes.
Why do you think you've been abducted?
Well, I had an experience where I remembered being abducted, but it was in the past long ago, and you didn't talk about things like that. And in fact, that's why I didn't give you my name, because...
That's quite all right. How distinct are your memories of the abduction?
Well, we went to bed at night, and like we normally do, we got in underneath the covers, and we woke up the next morning, and our bedspread was on us, and the sheets was on top of the bedspread. And I had a mark on my arm that was like a burn that had never been there, and we had strange remembrances of something happening during the night.
How much can you remember?
Some, but not too much. But as far as I know, it wasn't a threatening experience to me.
I do love the idea that this woman knows that she got abducted because she woke up and her sheets were in a different order on her bed.
Right.
Why would that happen?
In a different order? What does that mean? Like they're like backwards? It's like I've done that before too. Like if I've had like a pretty restless night, my sheets are all over the place.
Well, it was
completely
like
different things.
Yeah, it was like the sheet was on top of the comforter.
I'm not wearing pants anymore. I'm not like, oh my God, did a spirit come in and take off my pants?
Maybe.
Did
According to this one.
Did I go into a different dimension that were pants thieves?
It just wasn't the most compelling abduction story I've ever heard. And I'm also confused why she thinks 3 generations of her family got abducted. This sounds very much like the people that we often hear who had a thought, and that thought is now real. I recall the memory of waking up, and the sheet was in the wrong place.
Yes.
And therefore I was abducted, and I guess the aliens tried to remake the bed, but they're aliens, so they don't know how we make beds. So they couldn't do it properly.
I think we may be dealing with a person who was trying to do a bit and did not do a very good job.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Chris, because would you like to hear another person that was trying to do a bit and didn't do a great job?
Where are all the time travel stories?
There weren't many this episode. He kept calling it out every break. We're gonna have another one coming up here in a second, but there's not a
He's
ton.
like, please, time travel, and everyone's like, did I tell you about the clown?
I think time traveling fell out of vogue, or the screeners were doing a bad job screening.
2004. I feel like we do go through periods of time travel movies. We'll get like a crank out of them, and then nobody wants to talk about time travel because it does start to hurt your brain if you think about time traveling too much. And I almost wonder if we didn't get some steam released from Christopher Nolan doing Inception a couple of years ago, which all made our brains hurt and was close enough to time travel that it was like, all right, well, our brains hurt enough, so we don't need to do time travel for a little bit. Because I can't really think of a great time travel movie that's come out in the last few years.
Yeah, the closest for me would be Interstellar, but that's not
interesting.
I mean, I guess it sort of is time travel at the end.
Like 2016?
Yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah.
I think it was 2014. It's 10 years ago now.
Yeah. I do love that movie, though. That is a great movie.
It's okay.
It is one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites.
It's all right.
I love that movie so much. All right.
Yeah.
Next caller says that he's standing next to a UFO, Chris.
Now we're talking. We're getting somewhere now.
You're on the air, Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. Where are you calling from, please?
Hello.
Hello?
I'm calling from the U.S. That's all I can say.
All right.
A few months ago, I had one of my tech sergeants call in. He was guarding faculty, if you will. He asked me to call in.
He was guarding a faculty?
Let's just say he was guarding something that you guys are looking for. And he convinced me about 2 weeks ago to call in. I'm his commander. I'm post commander of this faculty. And it took me a while to get on with you guys, but here I am.
You keep saying faculty. Do you mean facility?
If you will.
Okay. And what is it that your facility does?
Well, let's just say I'm looking at something right now that wasn't made in this world.
So that's a weak start. We got some more.
Yeah.
Not strong.
My faculty. I was like, are you a bunch of teachers? Is that what you're trying to say? Like you're a professor? My faculty.
My favorite is Art says, do you mean facility? And then he's like, if you will.
Well, if you're going to hit me with $10 words, sir, I guess so.
So not the most impressive gentleman, but he continues on. He has a whole little story he's got to weave.
Some kind of commander, though, I think he's trying to say he's the commander of a base somewhere, and probably a secret base.
He's trying to, but my guess is if you're in charge of a base, you would know the word facility, is my hope. I've never served, but...
Listen, if you were a good military commander in 2004, you were in Iraq and Afghanistan. You weren't at the home base, so we may not have had the best commanders overlooking the homeland.
Actually, that's a great point. I'm pretty sure that we dropped the requirements during the Iraq War, so maybe he did slip in.
This was attrition. This was, we got to have a warm body in this spot, and they're like, he uses faculty for facility. Is that okay? And it's like, is that the worst thing he does? No, it sucks, but okay, that's fine. Go with him. Put him in the seat.
I know that his vocabulary is at a second grade level, but he has a pulse, so he can watch the UFOs.
The man takes shit better than any commander I've ever seen, sir.
I mean, if you think about it, it is sort of genius to have the idiot in charge because no one's gonna believe him. He already sounds like a jackass.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's great.
It's bonkers. This is all good. And his subordinate told him to call into Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell to talk about the things he's seen as the commander of the post.
Can you imagine a subordinate going to their commander and saying, "Hey, I called into Coast to Coast to talk about the UFOs. Can you do the same?"
You do
You
it
get
too,
sent to the
boss.
gulag.
Yeah, dude, you would never even, that conversation would happen and it would have been recorded because everything at a facility like this would be recorded.
Well, let's find out what's going on at this faculty, Chris.
You're right. All right,
We're gonna
but
learn.
let's take the tinfoil hat off and let's listen to this man tell his story.
We're here to learn.
Well, all right, then why don't we go ahead and why don't we go ahead and describe it, whatever it is, or is it beginning to take off as we speak? I hear some weird noise.
1979, order came down to terminate an unidentified flying object. We terminated it. All life was hunted down and terminating within 24 hours as per the order. And we recovered what was left of the craft. And my superiors, if you will, well, let's just say it's about 280 foot long, probably about 150 feet wide, and there were 17 occupants on board, and it was deemed fit for the human race that we exterminate with extreme prejudice. The life forms on board. We, with the technology that we had at the time, we froze what was left of the occupants on board.
You froze them?
We froze them. But I had one of my tech sergeants call in a few months ago.
Yes.
I believe he talked to a George Norrie. I believe that was his name.
That's the information I have, yes.
And about, I guess it was 19 months ago, we gave the president a new briefing on the project.
You did. President Bush.
We have a $17 million budget on this base.
Yes, would that be President Bush?
Yes, it would.
Uh-huh.
We gave him we told him that we were asking for an additional $24 million a year, and he told us he was cutting our budget by half.
Oh, not a good idea when you got a big secret like that.
Well, not just that. The reason we terminated these people was the total amount on board, and in order to terminate them, which we ended up doing, we ended up losing about a quarter of our people, which is, I'm not going to say, but it was a lot of people.
Well, so you terminated with extreme prejudice. In other words, how did you kill them?
I can't say.
Oh, yes, you can.
No.
How did you kill them? Big whack over the head or what?
Well, let's just say that how we killed them would offend a lot of people.
What a way to end that clip, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would offend them.
It would offend them.
It would offend people how we killed them.
Can't
What does that mean? What could that even possibly mean?
They dropped nukes on them. They used 2 nukes.
Yeah.
To blow
Is that
this
what
up.
it was?
Yeah, it's what it was.
Oh my gosh. All right. I can see why the offensive nature of it. But okay. I mean, this is all BS, right?
Oh yeah, no, this guy he's not even doing a good job.
You know what? To be fair, I was relatively riveted by the story. I didn't think he did a terrible job, but here's some things that we know as big brain UFO people, right? Multiple extraction teams, right? Why would you do this? So no one group has all the information.
Mm-hmm.
He's not talking about multiple extraction teams. We've heard from other folks, there's like 5, 6, 7 different extraction teams that are all going in and doing different parts of the like breakdown process of a crashed UFO or whatever it may be. You know what I mean? There's one group that goes in and removes the bodies. And so you got a part of the team that's like, I've never seen a body in my whole entire life. I'm not even sure if there are bodies there. And there's one group that's all like, they've only seen the bodies. They only know about the bodies, And so this is how the government would work. They would want to break up the process, not have one doofus who is somehow a commander of a post, like in charge of every single aspect, from nuking them to then taking and recovering the bodies and recovering the material and recovering the ship. It's like that's just a bonkers way of anybody doing it. Even all the way back in 2004 under Bush, they just would not have done it, dude. They would have had this thing primo set by the 60s at the latest.
I also love the idea that this guy is standing next to it and looking at it. And I'm like, you have a hard line that calls out from the UFO hangar.
Of course. And he's just like sitting there patting it like, you wouldn't believe what I'm sitting next to, Art, and just giving it a pat, Art, this thing's got a Hemi. It's got a Hemi, Art.
What he described is the length of a football field. So it's very large as well.
It's got a Hemi.
So I guess we weren't totally buying that one, Chris, which is a bummer. But no. I also,
you know what? Listen, him personally, I'm going to give him like a 3.5 because the story was pretty good.
It was fun.
It was better than the other stories we've heard for the most part. So I'm going to give him that. I was entertained by it, and that's like, if you give me the minimum entertainment, you're good enough. Now, me being a big brain UFO man, I could poke holes into it, but the people out in the hinterlands out there before the internet, and they're reading like a bootleg copy of Project Blue Book, and they're like, I don't know anything about UFOs right now, just what the Air Force created for me to know. That is an Air Force created document.
All they have is a photocopied version of Behold the Pale Horse.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
The good old days.
They went to the public library to copy their friend's version of Behold a Pale Horse. They don't know. They don't know like we know.
All right, well, let's get to a time traveler, Chris, because we do have a time traveler that does call in.
Shall we? On our specially designated time traveler line, you are on the air.
Yes, Mr. Bell.
You're cutting out.
Yeah, I had to go out in the middle of nowhere so I could see him coming. I've come in more from the past than from the future, and it does not take nearly as much energy as people think to travel time.
Oh?
No, it's more a manipulation of an electromagnetic field with radio frequencies.
Yeah, well, the Philadelphia experiment was about exactly that, and I'm not immune to believing what you're saying, that there could be a combination of electromagnetic energy and rotating RF fields and so forth that could cause exactly that. And you're claiming that's what you have done, and you've come from the past?
More from the past, about the mid-'70s. Your antenna array, that loop antenna array, I haven't seen it, but it sounds like you're real close to actually completing a fairly large circumference for manipulating an area of time.
So you're claiming you came from the 70s, huh?
About the mid-'70s.
About the mid-'70s. And is this a discovery, this mechanism to allow time travel, is it a discovery you made, stumbled on yourself, or others did?
It was something I stumbled on, and I have been found, and I have been given ground rules to follow.
Oh, dude. I like that. Do we have more from this guy?
We do got more from this guy.
All right, good, because I want to say, and I have been given ground rules. I was like, oh, boy, who's they? See, I want to know who they is.
I think this guy's doing a good job, because that's how you do it.
He's doing a great job.
It works in sci-fi novels, too. You give them a little taste of something weird, and you just got to keep reading to figure it out.
Yes, the RF, yes. Tell me more about the RF fields, baby. Come on, rotating RF fields? Electromagnetism? Of course that could send somebody into the future. Like, I have no doubt about that now.
That's all we know from science, is that if you hit the right frequency, you're in the future.
Boom.
I mean, come on.
This man is smashing it. I love it, dude. 1975, perfect year. What a great year to choose. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Oh my
that's a
god,
great one.
dude. I'm loving it so far. Let's go.
All right, so let's keep rolling. Let's find out about this time traveling governing body.
Yeah, what is going on here?
Somebody or something found you?
It's a larger organization than just the government. It's pretty. There's the powers that be that control the government.
Yes.
They also control a group that patrols the time.
Oh, now this is interesting. So then there are certain rules to time travel, which apparently were laid down for you. Is that it?
Yes, if I violate any of those on this phone call, they'll find me faster than I can leave here.
All right. Try and tell me what you can of the rules for time travel. I mean, what are the? Can you talk about that at all?
To a certain extent, there's a common sense rules. You're not going to go into, like you say, Vegas and play the odds in your favor. You can, to an extent, to where you need money to survive or to accomplish a mission.
But you can't get greedy.
No, they'll come down on you before you ever get to that point.
They. Might we understand the nature of they? Or them?
Your Illuminati is a close understanding, about as close as you're going to get to it.
You believe the Illuminati are the guardians of the secret?
It's an organization that's the Illuminati would pale in a comparison of their barbarism. I would say the Illuminati is what they have propagated as, kind of their cover.
Yeah, there's an Illuminati inside the Illuminati. We all know that.
I mean, it's how the Illuminati were formed, is they formed inside the Freemasons.
Yeah.
It's turtles all the way down.
It's turtles all the way down, dude. Once you penetrate the first circle, that's the thing. You've only penetrated the first circle. There are so many levels, and then it's just like the Rothschilds at the top.
It's just, it's just a constant nesting doll, much like our government's UFO programs of secret societies whose esoteric power grows the deeper you get in. You start with the Freemasons. They have some political power. Then you get to the Illuminati, who have more spiritual control of Earth. And then you get to the Illuminati's Illuminati, which control time.
Yeah, dude. And this is, it's like, this is how I know George Soros isn't that big of a deal, because he's playing in politics. If you are playing in politics like George Soros does, you're not even close to the top of the pyramid.
Yeah. Do you think these time traveler authority guys care about our politics? No. They got bigger fish to fry.
They're looking at the hyper banking guys, the ones that control national currencies. Those are the ones that are the people behind the machine. You know what I mean? They're these guys that we've heard of don't know anything.
Yeah, dude. They're living in a fourth dimensional reality. Yeah. We're fifth dim and higher, man.
Yes.
We're above it.
I love the idea of being a part of an organization that patrols time. That's maybe the coolest idea I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, yeah. It immediately reminded me of Marvel, because they have what's called the time, the Time something authority. It's the TVA. The only reason I know that is because Tennessee Valley Authority.
Right. But I was going to say the Federal Time Agency.
Yeah,
it would definitely be it would be bureaucratized for sure.
You have the appropriate permits for this time travel.
Instantaneously, they would bureaucratize this thing.
Yeah. Well, we got one more clip from this guy who has a little more to say about some potential issues you could run into.
Any ill effects because of time travel?
Not that I've experienced. Some of the ill effects that I've heard of, which is why they want me to use their equipment, are, for instance, materializing 30 or 40,000 feet above the ground.
That would be bad.
Yeah, it's more getting stuck in a magnetic stream outside the stratosphere, or you kind of pull in on the wrong spot, is what they're explaining to me. I don't understand a lot of what I did or how I did it, or how it worked. All I know is I turned it on, I said, what the heck, let's try it, and I came out in about 1993.
I'm trying to even imagine what it would be like to jump 20 years. I mean, the technology and the world would have changed so much in 20 years that it'd be almost hard to get around.
Yeah, the garage was the people that lived in the place that I popped into where I'd left. They had completely remodeled the garage. I felt like I just stepped into a different room. And when I went walking back into the house and all my parents' furniture was gone, and here they are with these cordless phones and everything. I kind of flipped out. And, of course, they flipped out when they saw me.
I'm sure they did. They probably thought, my God, it's a ghost or worse.
He did a great job. Dude did a great job. He smashed it. He absolutely smashed it.
That is a really funny scenario, though, if you think about it. Like, just showing up in someone's garage, 20 years in the future, like, whoa, who are you?
You're like wearing bell bottoms and like an acid wash shirt, and they're like, what? And you're just like, I used to live here 20 years ago.
Sorry about it. But the other thing you brought up, though, about ending up way too high above the earth or something, I think is interesting, because this is one of the issues with time travel that no one talks about, is the fact that if you jump through space-time, we're constantly moving through space on Earth.
Right.
So you would need to jump to like the exact moment where Earth was.
Yes.
X number of years in the past or future.
Yes.
You can't just jump randomly. Otherwise, you end up floating in outer space.
Yes.
So I kind of like that.
Yeah. And that does, it starts to get to a weird place. It's like, so is the place around you moving in time? Are you moving in time with the moment in space that there's so many, this is what I'm saying, why I think we don't really see a lot of time travel movies anymore, is because you really start picking apart the material aspects of time travel and things just start breaking apart immediately. Ooh, there is a TV show on Amazon. It's an Amazon original called Periphery, and they did time travel pretty well.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, they just went with every time it just splits off into a new world.
Yeah,
and
I think that's the only clean way to do it.
It really does help a lot of things. It really does. So I thought they did a pretty good job, but that's really one of the, that's not like a TV show I hear a lot of people talking about.
Yeah. Well, we got one more time traveler, Chris. We can see how he does as well.
Let's do it.
I would give you my name, but you probably already have it with the automatic number identification or CNA that's attached to your phone lines.
You think so?
I'll make it very simple, okay? We used to take airplanes out of Las Vegas and fly to a classified center where we installed huge antenna arrays to monitor magnetic rifts. Okay, we also installed large antenna arrays to talk to the satellites for the government, okay, where a lot of interesting stuff went on. Okay?
Okay.
Now, the problem is ever since I left that facility, I've been having extreme headaches, and I choked down bottles of aspirin ever since, and a lot of other people have left that facility are in the same condition, okay?
I've heard that.
And I've ended up going to military doctors to have cancer removed. We've signed documents saying that if we get sick after leaving the facility, since the facility doesn't exist, it never happened. Unfortunately, the medical bills don't go away and stuff like that. So if anybody out there hearing, I hope they figure out a solution to this area that we went to. Okay? There's all kinds of stuff. Bush has already re-signed an order to reclassify the areas that we were in.
That's correct.
So discussing any information within the area would have me in jail so far that, let's see, the way they put it they'd have to send fruit roll-ups to me in the form of sunshine. You know? So,
is that the way they put it?
This is good stuff so far because a lot of it is ringing true.
Yeah, we're not taking care of our vets. That adds up.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes. Well, and it reminds me of our Dr. Delirium episode, where you had these guys who got tested on. I mean, these are American soldiers who got tested experimental chemicals on that literally messed up their brains and couldn't talk to anybody about it, couldn't tell their doctors about it, couldn't get help for it. You have, I mean, I think it was like dozens of soldiers who commit suicide. You have others with decades long PTSD. Like this is all adding up.
All tracking, man, all tracking. Well, let's find out what he was doing there.
He's doing a good job.
Yeah.
These experiences in time that people are experiencing with the clocks and that.
Yes.
It's called accelerated time. The government has been watching it. It's a phenomenon that's going on in the universe. It's accelerated time. And basically what happens is you'll be sitting around, you'll go to bed, and you'll wake up and you'll feel like you've slept 3 or 4 hours and your clock has only gone an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Or you'll lose 45 minutes and feel extremely exhausted. They've been experimenting with this and trying to realize and understand it.
And you're saying in those areas in which you traveled in, that's where the experimentation is being done.
Yes.
All right, well,
Experimentation with special aircraft, with magnetic fields and everything else. There's a lot of misinformation flowing around to keep people out of the areas and that stuff. Believe me, if anybody wants to go out there and even think that they can get close,
they can, and it's a very good. Yeah, I know it's a very good way to end up either shot or in jail. Most likely in jail. That's the first order. And you just don't try to get close to these areas out in the desert. There are signs that say deadly force authorized, and they are serious about that.
This guy is sounding legit.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, and I can only imagine, especially as somebody who was screwed with in this way, that had serious problems and did not get the care taken for them, I would want to tell somebody.
Yeah, I would too. And it also wouldn't shock me if the government was doing something weird with electricity or magnets back in like the 90s
100%.
or the 80s.
1,000,000%.
That's not
dude,
wild.
No, this is not shocking at all. I'm sure they were doing crazy things with airplanes, trying to get them like hypersonic and things like that. I'm sure they were doing all kinds of weird stealth stuff. I'm sure we were just really figuring out how to manipulate electromagnetism.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure the science nerds were probably going insane with the theoretical implications of all the science we had just learned in the decades after World War II.
Yeah, I mean, and if we learned anything from that Dr. Delirium episode, like you said, it's that the government does some dumb shit.
Yeah. And it's not even dumb, dude, because it works. Like one of the things we have is like the bumbling government. And it's like, they can be highly effective when they want to. If there is a real willpower and resources, they can get something done. And so, and here's the thing, a lot of the times it's not good. Like the things they do best are the worst things, right? They can't figure out how to, give free energy to all the US, but we can figure out how to create a hydrogen bomb in a couple of years. We can figure out how to make more and more effective airplanes that drop more and more bombs on people, but we can't figure out how to feed everyone and house everyone. We can't do that, but we can do the bad stuff really well.
Yeah, priorities, Chris. Come on. We need more hydrogen bombs. I do think that this also points to a lack of imagination that I think we now have around electricity and magnetism that we used to have.
Tesla, baby.
I miss those days that I never got to live through of the magic of electricity.
Well, you're part of the problem. You want to be put into a computer.
That it would be pretty magical and it would be electric. So you're right.
And I think that's where a lot of the problem has been, is that there's just been so much money put into tech. So all the money and all the brightest minds have decided to go into tech. So we're pushing computers and artificial intelligence and software and stuff like that. And so we've made incredible leaps and bounds in this technology. I'm not going to say that we haven't, but I feel like it has caused other things to atrophy because what all they're doing now is like, well, we're just going to throw a computer in that and that'll make it more efficient. And it's like, yeah, but there's other things we can do to make the things around us better and not just add a computer to it.
Like make time machines.
Like make time machines. And here's the thing. Could the American government have figured out how to create some kind of time machine that uses electromagnetism? Dude, yeah, they could have. They could have. And we don't know about it. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt they have some kind of time manipulation machine.
Well, Chris, on a scale of 1 to 5 Morlocks, what do you give our Time Traveler Open Lines episode?
2.5, 3. And it is a shame because our 2 actual time travelers smashed it out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
But collectively, they didn't show out. So I feel like I have to give it a little bit of a lower score. The clown story was pretty interesting. I did kind of like that one. That was pretty awesome. The UFO guy, the commander of the faculty, he was not that great. He was okay. He was a good storyteller, but the story was bad.
Yeah.
But then our 2 time travelers smashed it out of the park. So I would give them 5s because they were awesome. They killed it. So I'll maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll give 5 to our 2 time travelers, and I'll give like 2 to everybody else.
I think that's fair. I was going to overall give the episode 2 in total because there just wasn't enough time travel, but that's how most of the Time Traveler Open Lines are. The one that we did for the Patreon was all time travelers, and it was awesome.
The problem with, again, and I've now mentioned it several times, but time traveling hurts people's brains.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard to do well. So I can kind of see your average coast to coast head being like, I'd rather just talk about my weird clown story.
Yeah, that's true. That's true because those are apparently abundant, Chris. Well, that will be our episode for this week. You can support the show at patreon.com/coast-to-coast-pm for as little as $2 a month to keep us on the air and keep us running, keeping us ad-free. And you can email me, c2cpmpod@gmail.com, and you can find Chris on Reddit, r coast-to-coast-pm. That'll be the show. We'll see you next week.
All conspiracy, all the time. Later.